I am really excited to have my next guest join us. They just dropped a brand new EP called Everybody Talks. It's the guys of Rowan. Dudes, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Indeed. We've got Dylan, Kevin, and Fionn. Is that the proper pronunciation?
It's pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty good. Fionn.
Say again?
Fionn.
Fionn.
Yeah.
Oh, emphasis on the on.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Nice. Thanks so much for your time, guys. I understand this is right before a gig that you're doing in Ireland. And where is this right now? Please describe to me your feelings that you're going through in performing live.
Well, we just finished the gig, so we're all like pumped
up.
Yeah.
Full of adrenaline.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to chat, especially after a gig. This EP is totally right up my alley. The sounds are totally what I gravitate towards in terms of these indie rock vibes that I get. But first, in terms of how you guys got together, it's an interesting story because it's the pandemic that basically got you guys on the same page because you were off doing your own things prior to this. So I'm curious, who was the catalyst that basically brought you guys together, and what was the conversation like in terms of, let's really focus on becoming a band?
Jeez, we have a funny story.
I'll start in Donegal.
Start in Donegal.
Okay, so when I was 13, I lived in Donegal, which is the northwest of Ireland, and I lived near Fionn. So the two of us actually started our first band together when we were 13, 14, or 12, 13.
Yeah.
So then we knew each other quite well, and then Fionn moved away from Donegal, and I let him take over.
Yeah, I moved, and I moved to Cork, where I saw Dylan busking with a band, and they didn't have a drummer, and I felt that they most definitely needed a drummer. So I told him that I am your guy.
Dylan, what was that conversation like? Because that's got to be a trip. You're doing your own thing. You think you're making some good stuff, and then this guy comes along and says, "Hey, you guys sound good. You're missing something. And you know what that missing ingredient is? Me."
Yeah. It's funny, like, because I think you opened the message with like, "Oh, I'm just back from tour," so we were like, "Oh, this guy's big." So we were like, "We better listen." So yeah. I think there was an instant respect after we heard that he had played gigs, which we weren't used to. We were only used to the streets. So.
Right. Now, what about the musical influences individually that you grew up with and also found in common amongst each other that basically shapes the sounds of Rowan?
Yeah, I think we all, like, even when we were all about 10 or 11, we all loved bands like the Arctic Monkeys and the Strokes and all that kind of, 2000s indie stuff. We were obsessed with it, and I kind of gravitated towards metal as well at one point, and jazz and all this stuff.
That's not in our music, though.
Yeah, it's not.
Now, Kevin, your background is very interesting because you are quite an accomplished guitarist. You've been playing for a long time, since you were a kid. You went to school for this, got a degree, and you play all kinds of genres. And I'm curious, when you were first starting out and even went to school, what direction were you going in terms of being a classical guitarist? Did you want to be in a band, a professor? What was your intention?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think at the time I had much of an intention. I just knew I wanted to keep playing guitar, and that seemed like the best way to keep going about it. Go to college. Then after college, I met these guys, so I just stayed in Cork after college and just kept playing with no real intention, just to try and get better and get more gigs.
Right.
So, and now we're here.
So Dylan, if you've been writing these songs for a number of years and it took this pandemic to basically focus and bring you guys together as a band, how many of these songs that are on this EP are more recent versus some of the ones that have been sitting for a while and took, Fionn and Kevin to help flesh out?
I suppose some of the songs, like on the last EP, I would have had since I was about 15 or 16 maybe. Like I remember Big Wave was basically this guitar riff, and I brought it to these two and they played behind it. I was like, this has to be a song. I never knew what to do with it until like we got in a room and played it and like kind of wrote it together. But some of them are quite old, and then the new EP is literally just the last year. That's, pandemic material. I hate calling it that, but
Right.
Very much so.
yeah.
And this EP is certainly a lot different sonically than your first EP, which is a little bit more on the softer acoustic side of things. So how intentional and how purposeful was it to make this raucous type of sound on the new EP? Or how organic was it? In terms of the process, how did this all come about?
I found in the last year anyway that because we've had time to, you know, work on music or whatever it may be, that we've ended up going back to our roots. And like we've all done different things, and like, you know, the folk thing is part of it, the kind of piano ballad stuff is probably part of it too. But I think who we really are is that indie band, you know, kind of influenced by those indie bands. It's kind of, that's where we feel at home, I think, you know.
Kevin, how much fun are those songs to play, plugged in, shredding, giving you moments to really just go all out?
You know, it's a lot of fun. I had a great fun a few hours ago on the stage, so that was good. But I think the more heavier guitar driven stuff, I think maybe a part of it too came from being restricted in lockdown, not being able to play gigs. So we had like a bit of a burning desire to kind of break down doors and dust off cobwebs. So maybe some of those songs had a bit more injection of energy and stuff because we couldn't have a release anywhere else. So
the songs on this new EP would sound great live, in my opinion, as well as the songs on the first EP as well. Let's not forget that. And so as you record music as Rowan moving forward, do you think you'll have that live approach to it or live feel in terms of recording new music?
Definitely. I mean, we finished the album about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
And it was that approach exactly. It was live band, you know, few takes. That's it. No layers, really, to be honest.
yeah.
Wow. So that being the case, is this debut album a snapshot of this certain period of time, or is it more of a bigger picture in terms of Rowan from the early days until now, and kind of a mix of your experiences that basically encapsulate your lives up until this point?
Great question.
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I do think a lot of the writing from all of us has come from, as I say, like our roots and everything. And it's about, like, you know, there's parts of it that are about growing up in the age we are, like, you know, we're all about 25, 7 and 8, I think. And just feeling old at that point, even though like our logical brain tells us we're not old, but it's like you feel older than 12 anyway. It's like,
Well, that is amazing to hear. I can't wait for that. I'm excited for your future. This EP rules. I really much look forward to seeing you perform these songs live here in the States at some point, and really appreciate you taking time for the chat. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.
Great to meet you.